Welcome to TDW, your weekly stop to catch up on all news, tech, and things that concern you as a developer. This week we'll be talking about some of the issues that are plaguing the internet and may also be causing some trouble for you and your users. We'll also be talking about who is now a $1.2 billion company and a platform that's going to totally revolutionize the way that we interact with the web and how we write applications. This is episode 1 of This Developer Weekly. To start things off, we're going to be talking about Heartbleed, OpenSSL, and OpenID. So last month we heard about Heartbleed, and it was a security vulnerability within OpenSSL. It allowed an attacker to take anything off of the server that existed in memory, whether it be garbage or a user's password or any other particular private information that was hanging out in it. For the most part, everything has been taken care of. But a study released last week from the Pew Institute stated that less than 50% of people have changed their passwords since Heartbleed has been detected and has been fixed across the internet. If you as a user have not changed your password yet, now's a perfect time to do it. You have no idea if you've been compromised or not, and it's always a good idea to change your passwords occasionally, and this gives you a perfect opportunity to do so. Another big topic that's in the security news here recently is a vulnerability within OpenID and OAuth. For those who are not familiar with OAuth, it's essentially any time that you go to an application and ask you to log in via Facebook or via Google, you're using OAuth. And the vulnerability essentially allows a website, whether they be authenticated or not, to ask you to authenticate through Facebook, for example. And then it will redirect you back to their page, granting that particular application any rights that the application that it's trying to mimic has. So let's say you're playing Farmville and it has a certain amount of access, so that generally has access to your contact list, and your friends. So now that application that is pretended to be Farmville now has access to that. Unfortunately, all we can do as a developer right now is create whitelists of domains and applications that we know are secure that should be allowed to interact with our application. As a user, if a site seems somewhat untrusting, don't click on it. Don't allow it to authenticate. So who's a $1.2 billion company? WordPress. Well, at least the company who owns WordPress, Automatic. When WordPress and Automatic became one, they said that they were on firm ground, and they still are to this day. There's no reason not to believe so. This latest round of funding is $160 million and is being held by Insight Ventures. Once all the deals are closed, they value the company at $1.2 billion. For those of you who don't know, WordPress runs about 30% of the internet, and so this is huge. And they're still in a highly competitive market. With Facebook, Google+, Twitter all becoming more content-driven, they feel that they have a responsibility to users and not advertisers. And they want you to be able to own your content and be able to profit from it, instead of the advertisers making the majority of the profit. So this is really big news for you as a user. It allows you to monetize content without having to put too much resources to advertisement. Our final topic for the evening deals with a platform that will totally revolutionize the way that we write applications and the way that content is delivered through those applications. If you guys haven't heard of it yet, the platform's called Meteor. If you haven't heard of Meteor before, I can sum it up in 2 statements. 1, it's a library of packages, and 2, it's a command line tool. But I would be lying to you if that's all I said that it was. Meteor is built around 7 core principles, the first of which is data on the wire. So essentially, the way that Meteor likes to operate is to send the entire application over to the client, and the only thing that goes back and forth between the client and the server is data. This allows for a limited amount of resource calls back and forth between the server, and it also sets up clear boundaries as far as your functionality of your application goes. The second principle is one language. That means you can write JavaScript on the server, and you can write JavaScript on the client. For those of you who are web developers, it's a common practice for us to run something as PHP, Scala, Java, C#, some of the language on the server, and then on the front end, we always run JavaScript. You have a switching cost from going back and forth in between languages. When we stick to one language throughout our entire development time, we're more productive, we can do things quicker, and we don't have to take time to think about how we have to do something in that particular language. The third principle is data everywhere, which is kind of awesome. Data in the client, data on the server. Essentially the way the Meteor does it is it passes a subset of data from the server to the client, and that client can interact through the same APIs that you interact with the data on the server. This allows for robustness of a platform, and it also keeps you from having to think about how do I make an AJAX call back to the server to get the server to update this. The fourth principle is latency compensation. So the user should never feel like they should be waiting on data. So to do this, Meteor prefetches data. It also does model simulation and a handful of other things to make your life easier and also the experience for the user better. The fifth principle, full stack reactivity. Real time should be the default. We shouldn't have to try to set anything up to allow our application to interact in real time. We should not have to write any excess code on the front side to help facilitate this. It should be the same API throughout the entire platform, and the platform should handle the real-time connectivity. The sixth principle is embrace your ecosystem. Meteor is an open source platform, meaning that the community develops it. Well, for the most part. It is backed like it's a normal company, so they do have a core developer team that's constantly pushing the platform forward, trying to make it the best that it can be, trying to optimize it. But that being said, a large majority of the packages that are out there nowadays are written by community members like you and I. Iron Router, the main routing functionality that's part of Meteor, is built by a third party, and it's used in 80 to 90% of the applications that run on Meteor. The last principle is simplicity equals productivity. For a lot of developers, we try to overcomplicate things. I think that's just the way that we think. So their idea is to make something simple, actually make it simple. The APIs that we use to interact with our application should be simple. They should be intuitive, and they should be ready to be used at any given time. These 7 principles help guide the community and the core team who develop full-time for Meteor. Once you dive into Meteor, you'll see that these 7 principles really do play an integral part in the way that the application is built and how you'll build your application within Meteor. It will cut down the amount of code that you write by 40 or 50% easily. When you need something that is part of every application, such as an authentication system, routing, you name it, more than likely there'll be a package out there to support it, so you don't have to write it, and you can concentrate on the business logic and the primary functionality of your application. It truly is a better way to write applications, and I fell in love with it, and I hope you do too. That wraps up episode 1 of this Developer Weekly. Thanks for stopping by. To make sure that you stay up with everything TDW, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. If you have any questions or anything that you would like to share with us or anything that you would like to see in future episodes, please feel free to drop us a line. If you have any resources that you'd like to share, whether it be a blog, an application that you have written, please feel free to drop that off as well. I'm always interested in seeing the things that you guys build and how awesome they are. Once again, thanks again for stopping by, and we'll see you next week.